Shalom, shalom, Israel, Most High in Christ. Bless. It's your brother, Officer Yari, back with another edition of Daily Bread. All praise to the Most High. We're going to hop into it. We're going to send up some prayers, and we're going to get right into class. Let's go ahead and send up some prayers. Blow trumpet. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today. Thank you, dear God. Thank you for guiding us, dear God. Thank you for blessing us, giving us the strength and understanding that we may proceed on, keeping your law, statutes, and commandments in the faith of your Son, Jesus the Christ, dear Lord. We thank you for your mercy, dear God. We thank you for sending your Son, Jesus Christ, upon the earth to give us the glorious example, dear God, that we may have right to the tree of life, that we may be the examples, that we may cleanse ourselves and purge ourselves of wickedness, dear God, and iniquities that set before us, dear Lord. Continue to weed out all malice, hatred, and envy within the nation of Israel, dear Lord, and bring back unity among the nation, dear God. Send those laborers in with sincerity of heart that willing to keep your laws, statutes, commandments in truth and sincerity, dear God. Continue to bless those that continue on this path, dear God. Continue to heal up those that are sick among us, dear Lord. Heal them up. Heal the feeble knees and the weak hands, dear God. Strengthen us in our minds, bodies, and soul, dear Lord. Destroy those that come against us. Destroy the enemy that come against the glorious gospel, dear Lord. And continue to open up doors that we may preach your glorious gospel throughout the four corners of this earth, dear God. Let the class be edifying, and let all of us continue to stay in the spirit. In Jesus' name we pray, and we thank you, dear God. Amen. Right, all praises, all praises. Again, another edition of Daily Bread. It's your brother, Officer Yari. Today's topic will be the history leading up to the dedication. So the history leading up to the dedication, or to the Feast of Dedication. All right. We're going to jump right into it. What I want to do is explore some of the things that happened. Touch on some of the traitors, right, that got us to the point of our temple being destroyed, that got us to the point of us having to renew the temple, all right, or renew the altar even, all right. So let's jump right into it. Let's go to 2nd Maccabees, 2nd Maccabees, and let's go to chapter 1, verse 1. Read that, and then we're going to jump. So 2nd Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 1.
This is the book of 2nd Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 1. The brethren, the Jews that be at Jerusalem and in the land of Judea, wish unto the brethren, the Jews that are throughout Egypt, health and peace.
So first thing, this is from the brethren, the Jews that be at Jerusalem and in Judea, and they're speaking to the brethren that be in Egypt. All right, jump down to verse 7.
Verse 7.
We're going to read all the way through to 18, but we're going to be stopping periodically. Let's go.
What time as Demetrius reigned in the 169th year, we the Jews wrote unto you in extremities of trouble that came upon us in those years, from the time that Jason and his company revolted from the Holy Land and kingdom, and burned the porch, and shed innocent blood, that we prayed unto the Lord, and were heard. We offered also sacrifices in fine flour, and lightened the lamps, and set forth the loaves. And now see, that ye keep the Feast of Tabernacles in the month Caslu, in the 184th year. The people were at Jerusalem and in Judea, and the council and Judas sent greetings and health.
So real quick, I just want us to look at something real fast, because it says, in the time of Demetrius' reign, all right, in the 169th year, so the 169th year, this is when we wrote this. So let's drop back to chapter 1, verse 10 real fast.
Verse 10. In the 184th year, the people were at Jerusalem and in Judea, and the council in Aristobulus King Ptolemy.
So sorry. What I say?
Verse 10.
Yeah, no. We're going to First Maccabees chapter 10, verse 67. Excuse me. Chapter 10, verse 67. First Maccabees chapter 10, verse 67.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 10 and verse 67.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, in the 165th year came Demetrius, son of Demetrius,
So came Demetrius, son of Demetrius. Read.
out of the Crete, into the land of his fathers, whereof, when King Alexander heard tell, he was sorry, and returned into Antioch. Then Demetrius made Apollonius, the governor of Cilicia, his general, who gathered together a great host, encamped in Jamnia, and sent unto Jonathan the high priest, saying.
So this is the Demetrius that we're talking about in Second Maccabees. Go back to Second Maccabees. So it's the son of Demetrius the second. So let's go back. Let's read where we left off. Actually, go back and read 7 again. Read 7 one more time.
Second Maccabees 1 and verse 7. What time as Demetrius reigned, in the 169th year, we the Jews wrote unto you in the extremities of trouble that came upon us in those years, from the time that Jason and his company revolted from the Holy Land.
It said from the time that Jason and his company revolted from the Holy Land. Hold that. Go to First Maccabees, chapter 1, and read verse 11.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 11.
Bring it out!
In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow.
Read.
So this device pleased them well.
Read.
Then certain of the people were so forth herein, that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen.
And what? Read.
Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen.
Read.
And made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief.
Right. Now go back. So this is during the time that Jason and his company
hewed them in pieces, smote off their heads, and cast them to those that were without.
So now Antiochus's captains, or his army, basically, the men who had with them, then got smoked. Read.
Blessed be our God in all things, who has delivered up the ungodly.
So now watch this. So go now to 1 Maccabees chapter 6. 1 Maccabees chapter 6. We're going to touch on this real quick since the brethren brought it up, and then we're going to move on into what preceded before this. Because now what we're talking about is eventually the death of Epiphanes, his last bout, so to speak. After this, he dies after this. So go to 1 Maccabees 6, read verse 1.
The book of 1 Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 1. About that time, King Antiochus, traveling through the high countries, heard say that Elymas in the country of Persia was a city greatly renowned for riches, silver, and gold.
So that's the city. Remember, we read the temple of Nania. So the temple of Nania is in the city of Elymas, okay? In the country of Persia. Read on.
And that there was in it a very rich temple.
And we read the rich temple is called Temple Nania. Read.
Wherein were coverings of gold and breastplates and shields, which Alexander, son of Philip, the Grecians had left there.
Read.
Wherefore he came and sought to take the city and to spoil it, but he was not able, because they of the city, having had warning thereof, rose up against him in battle. So he fled and departed thence.
Now notice what it said. It said that they had warning. So they had warning, and they devised the plan that we read about in 2 Maccabees. Read on.
Rose up against him in battle, so he fled. And
slinging stones like thunderbolts. Read.
And departed thence with great heaviness, and returned to Babylon. Moreover, there came one who brought him tidings into Persia, that the armies which went against the land of Judea were put to flight. So
at the same time this is happening, he had left some men to go against the men in Judea, and they lost there. So now he just lost in Persia. Now he's running back to Babylon, and now he gets a report that, man, we got our butts beat over there in Judea as well. Read.
Verse 6. And that Lystra,
or Lysias,
who went forth first with a great power, was driven away of the Jews, and that they were made strong by the armor and power, and store of spoils which they had gotten of the armies whom they had destroyed. So
Lysias basically was like, bro, we got our butts beat. Lysias in the crew, or Lysias in the power that be, Lysias in the army, got whooped. So go to now, let's get that real fast so we don't leave out any details. Go to 1 Maccabees 3 now, because this is what previously happened. 3:31.
The book of 1 Maccabees chapter 3 and verse 31.
Bring it out!
Wherefore, being greatly perplexed in his mind, he determined to go into Persia, there to take the tributes of the countries, and to gather much money.
So now we have Epiphanes, or Antiochus the fourth, right? Epiphanes says, you know what? I'm about to go into Persia. I'm trying to get some money from there. Why? Because he needed to pay the people. Read.
So he left Lystra,
so he left Lysias,
and a noble man, and one of the blood royal, to oversee the affairs of the king from the river Euphrates unto the borders of Egypt, and to bring up his son Antiochus until he came again. So
he left his son Antiochus, who we're going to find out later is Epater. He leaves his son with Lysias, and he left the affairs to Lysias. Read.
Moreover, he delivered unto him the half of his forces and the elephants, and gave him charge of all things that he would have done.
Read.
As also concerning them that dwelt in Judah and Jerusalem.
So he left half of the army, plus the fleet of the elephant army, so that he can go up against the men that dwelt in Judea and Jerusalem. Read.
To wit, that he should send an army against them to destroy and root out the strength of Israel and the remnant of Jerusalem, and to take away their memorial from that place, that he should place strangers in all their quarters and divide their land by lot. So the king took the half of the forces that remained and departed from Antioch, his royal city. In the 147th year, having passed the river Euphrates, he went through the high countries, and Lysias chose Ptolemy, the son of Darminius, and Nicanor, the son of Gorgias, mighty men of the king.
So now this is how we get Nicanor, Gorgias, right? This is how we get these men into the fight. Lysias chose these men to come fight with him. Verse 39.
Verse 39. And with them he sent 40,000 footmen and 7,000 horsemen to go into the land of Judah, and to destroy it as the king commanded.
So now we see Lysias and them going over to Judah to destroy it. The same time, Epiphanes says, I'm going into Persia to get some funds, basically. All right? He loses in Persia. Then he finds out at the same time that they lost in Judah. Who they lose to? The Maccabees. But watch this. Go to 2 Maccabees now, chapter 9. 2 Maccabees, chapter 9. Read verse 1 through 3.
The book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 9 and verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
About that time came Antiochus with dishonor out of the country of Persia.
Mm-hmm.
For he had entered the city called
Persepolis. So now we know, when we go back to 1 Maccabees, real quick, I'm about to just read it, grab it. 1 Maccabees 6, right? 1 Maccabees 6, they called, it said it was Eliamis, right? That was a country in Persia. Here, it says the city in that country was Persepolis. So we have Eliamis, the country of Persia, in the city of Persepolis, the city in Eliamis, and he went to the temple of Nania. Read.
Verse 2. For he had entered in the city called
Persepolis,
and went about to rob the temple and to hold the city. Whereupon the multitude, running to defend themselves with their weapons, put them to flight. And so it happened that Antiochus, being put to flight, of the inhabitants returned with shame.
So boom, he returns with shame. Read.
Now when he came to
Ecbatane,
news was brought. And what happened unto Nicanor, the son of Timotheus?
Nope, Nicanor and Timotheus.
Oh, Nicanor and Timotheus.
So you see that? We're seeing the same thing. Now he was in Ecbatane. Read.
The swelling with...
Remember, it said that he got put to flight. He went all the way back to Babylon. Read.
Then swelling with anger, he thought to avenge upon the Jews the disgrace done unto him by those that made him flee.
Hold on real quick. Let me look at something real fast. Hold on. I just want to check something out real quick. I didn't have this, but let me make sure. I think I do want to read it real quick. Let me look at this real fast. Actually, go ahead and read on.
Verse 4.
Oh, no. That's where we want to stop at verse 3. And let me get this. Oh, yeah. Go to Tobit, chapter 3. Tobit, chapter 3, verse 7, real fast. Because it says that Antiochus went to Ecbatane.
The book of Tobit, chapter 3 and verse 7.
Uh-huh.
It came to pass the same day that in Ecbatane, a city in Media.
I want us to see that Ecbatane is a city in Media. That's all we needed right there. Go back. So we just read 2 Maccabees 9, 1 through 3, right? 2 Maccabees 9. Pull up the works of Josephus for me real fast. Works of Josephus. And what I want out of, I want the page that says chapter 9. Chapter 9. Did I sing you chapter 9? I didn't sing you chapter 9? Here, real quick, I'm about to send it to you. How long is it going to take to pull it up once I send it to you? All right. Just one quick second. Bear with me, y'all. Let me send this over. Pull that up real fast. Is that blurry? So I want to read something real fast. This is in the Antiquities of the Jews. It's the full works of Josephus. We're in Antiquities of the Jews. So you could buy the book by itself. Yeah, show that real quick. So this is the works of Josephus. You could also buy them separately. You could buy Antiquities of the Jews. You can buy the Wars of the Jews. So this is in the part, the Antiquities of the Jews. It's book 12, chapter 9. Book 12 in Antiquities of the Jews, chapter 9. Blow that up. Yeah, read that.
Antiquity of the Jews, chapter 9.
Or book 12, chapter 9. Go ahead.
About this time, it was that King Antiochus, as he was going over the upper countries, heard that there was a very rich city in Persia called Elymas.
Elymas. Remember, it said it was the country Elymas in the city of Persepolis. Read.
And therein a very rich temple of Diana.
So this temple, Nania, was a temple of Diana. Read.
And that it was full of all sorts of donations dedicated to it. As also weapons and breastplates, which upon inquiry he found had been left there by Alexander, the son of Philip, king of Macedonia.
And so we read that in, what was that, 1 Maccabees 3? Or was it 1 Maccabees 6? We just read that, right? So go ahead, read on.
And being incited by these motives, he went in haste to Elymas and insulted it.
So we read that in 1 Maccabees 6, but go ahead.
And besieged it. But as those that were in it were not terrified at his assault, nor at his siege, but opposed him very courageously, he was beaten off his hopes. For they drove him away from the city and went out and pursued after him, in so much that he fled away as far as Babylon.
So what happened? Why did he go back to Babylon in shame? They chased him back. They pursued after him. They chased him all the way back to Babylon. Read on.
And lost a great many of his army. And when he was grieving for this disappointment, some persons told him of the defeat of his commanders, whom he had left behind him to fight against Judah.
So now we read those commanders that he left behind was Lysias in the crew. Lysias has Nicanor, Timotheus, Gorgias. They lost in the battle when they fought against Judea. Read.
And what strength the Jews had already gotten when this concern about these affairs.
Let me read that part. When this concern about these affairs was added to the former, he was confounded, and by the anxiety he was in, fell into a distemper, which, as it lasted a great while, and as his pains increased upon him, so he at length perceived he should die in a little time. So he called his friends to him and told them that his distemper was severe upon him, and confessed withal that this calamity was sent upon him for the miseries he, I didn't get the back part, huh? Go up. So up top, I didn't shoot it because I just shot the quick clip. I'm going to read the rest of it, though. So when we read, it says, this is why he figured he lost this sore battle. He says, it says, he sent upon him for the miseries that he had brought upon the Jewish nation, while he plundered their temple and condemned their God. And when he had said this, he gave up the ghost, whence one may wonder at Polybius. Actually, we go stop there. So basically what he said was, man, I'm dead, or I lost the battle and now I'm here in pain and about to die because what I did against the Jews. He understood that now he was being judged based upon what he did against the Jews.
Hit the bomb!
Why? Because our God has always stood up for us. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. So that was the death of Epiphanes. That's what the brothers is talking about as we're writing to the other brethren in Egypt, right? So now let's go back to 2 Maccabees. Back to 2 Maccabees. Let's go to chapter 2. Chapter 2. So let's move forward. Back to 2 Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 19. Read that.
The book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 2 and verse 19. Now it's concerning Judas Maccabeus and his brethren and the purification of the great temple.
So now concerning the Maccabean revolt, basically, Judas Maccabeus and his brothers and the purification of the great temple. Because remember, when Epiphanes had already got beat in Persia, this is what he heard about. He heard about this great defeat. So, and we call it the purification of what? Read that part again, verse 19.
Now it's concerning Judah Maccabeus and his brethren and the purification of the great temple and the dedication of the altar.
So now concerning the purification of the temple and the dedication of the altar, read.
And the wars against Antiochus Epiphanes and Eupator his son.
So in the wars against Epiphanes and Eupator his son.
And the manifest signs that came from heaven unto those that behave themselves manfully to their honor for Judaism. So that being but a few, they overcame the whole country and chased barbarous multitudes.
So now it says, in the reason why being just a few, we were able to overtake a country and chase away barbarous multitudes. It said manifest signs that came from heaven. Now read on, verse 22.
Verse 22. And recovered again the temple, renowned all the world over, and freed the city, and upheld the laws which were going down, the Lord being gracious unto them with all favor.
So mind you, remember, the major point of us standing up and fighting was to keep the laws of God. That was the major reason why we said, no, we're standing up manfully and fighting against. Why? It's to keep the laws. And because of that, we were able to regain the temple. Read on.
All these things I say, being declared by Jason of Cyrene.
So these things that we're going to speak about was declared by Jason of Cyrene. Read.
In 5 books.
He did it in 5 books. Jason of Cyrene declared these things in 5 books. Read.
We will essay to abridge in 1 volume.
So we will attempt to abridge these 5 books in 1 volume. Read on.
For concerning the infinite number and the difficulty which they find that desire to look into the narration of the story, for the variety of the matter.
So it says now the difficulty into looking into the narrations of these stories, meaning piecing them together, like even just looking at the death of Epiphanes, you see we went back to 1 Maccabees 6, 1 Maccabees 3, 2 Maccabees 9. We even went to the works of Josephus. So the difficulty into gathering these different narrations to see the full story, they're going to piece it together in one for us. Read.
We have been careful that they that will read may have delight, and that they that are desirous to commit to memory might have ease, and that all into whose hands it come might have profit.
Read.
Therefore, to us that have taken upon us this painful labor of abridging, it was not easy.
So they're letting us know, look, man, we did this for you the reader, so it's be easy for you to understand. We took upon this laborious attempt of abridging, read,
but a matter of sweat and watching, even as it is no ease unto him that prepareth a banquet and seeketh the benefits of others. Yet for the pleasuring of many will we undertake gladly this great pains, leaving to the author the exact handling of every particular and laboring to follow the rules of an abridgment.
So what they're saying is they're not going to leave out specifics that's needed to get the point, right? These are the rules of abridging. You can't just abridge something or take something and try to abbreviate it, right? And then leave out major pieces that's needed. If we're going to abbreviate it, make sure you get all the points that's necessary. Read on.
For as the master builder of a new house must care for the whole building, but he that undertaketh to set it out and paint it must seek out fit things for the adoring thereof.
Read.
Even so think it is with us.
Read.
To stand upon every point and go over things at large, and to be curious in particulars, belongeth to the first author of the story.
Right. So we're not going to leave out things that's, again, different particulars that's needed. Now, the things that's kind of, it was the dark sunny day. Dark sunny day, that don't even make sense. It was it was a cloudy, dark day, whatever it is, right? That part, okay, we'll leave out. But the particulars and the things that's necessary to hear for the reader to understand, we're going to make sure that's included. But still, we're going to abbreviate it. Read.
But to use
brevity,
brevity, and avoid much laboring of the work, it is to be granted to him that will make an abridgment. Here then, we will begin the story. Here then, we will begin the story, only adding thus much to that which have been said. That is a foolish thing to make a long prolong.
So it's a foolish thing to make a long prologue and to be short in the story itself. Why? Because it's foolish to now talk about all the details of the night and what it looked like, but then in the major pieces of the story or the points of the story that we need, now we're real short in that. Nah, that's foolish. So we're going to make sure you guys understand exactly what happened, what's going on, who's the players, and that's what I say here, we begin the story. So let's go ahead and begin the story. What led up to us having to cleanse the altar and regain the temple? 2 Maccabees chapter 3, verse 1. Let's read.
The book of 2 Maccabees chapter 3 and verse 1. Now when the holy city was inhabited with all peace, and the laws were kept very well, because of the godliness of Onias the high priest.
So now it says the holy city was inhabited and kept in peace because the laws that were kept, right? Everybody was keeping the laws in this moment. Why? Because of who?
Because of the godliness of Onias the high priest.
It said because the godliness of Onias the high priest. What we're going to do is we're going to read through, we're going to get through the reading, then we're going to go back and we're going to piece who's who together. So that way we can write it down, we can take our notes. But right now, let's get the story, all right? Let's read.
And it's
we're about to read a little fast. Read.
And his hatred of wickedness. It came to pass that even the kings themselves did honor the place and magnify the temple with their best gifts.
So it said it's even so that the place was so glorious, the kings, meaning the kings of the heathens of the other nations, even glorified the place and gave gifts. Read.
And so much that Seleucus, king of Asia, king of Asia, of his own revenues, bear all the costs belonging to the service of the sacrifices. So
King Seleucus, again, we're going to find out who's who, right? Which Seleucus this was, things of that nature. We're going to get through the story, then we're going to go back real quick so you can get your notes, right? But it says that even Seleucus, through his own revenue, his own money, he paid for the sacrificing. So all the sacrificing that we did, the offerings, it was out of his pocket. Read.
But one Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, who was made governor of the temple, fell out with the high priest about disorder in the city.
Here we go. Here go Israel.
And
We were in peace. Don't forget. We were in peace. Everything was good. The heathens was giving gifts, paying for our offerings. And here we go. Simon the Benjamite. He done fell out with Onias over something stupid, basically. Over what he thinks should be going on. Look what it said. It said that, but one Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, who was made governor of the temple, fell out with the high priest about disorder in the city. So something was going on that he didn't like in the city. Okay, it's called disorder. So he's feeling like, nah, it's out of order. But remember, we're at peace. Everything's all good because everybody was keeping the laws of God. Now he's mad about something that's happening in the city. Read.
And when he could not overcome Onias, he
could not get his way. And when he could not get his way, read.
He got him to Apollonius, the son of Tryphaenes, or
Tricius, or Thracius,
who then was governor of Cilicia and Phoenice.
So now we heard about Apollonius before, right? But let's read on.
And told him that the treasury in Jerusalem was full of infinite sums of money, so that the multitudes of their riches, which did not pertain to the account of the sacrifices, was innumerable, and that it was possible to bring all into the king's hand.
So Simon said, hey, bruh, we got money over here. And notice, all traders, this is how traders speak. Traders don't say we. He don't include himself with the rest of the people. Traders don't say we. Traders say they. They got money over there. Read.
Verse 7. Now when Apollonius came to the king and had showed him of the money whereof was told, the king chose out of Helidorius his treasurer, and sent him with a commandment to bring him to the foresaid money.
So now, boom, Simon tells Apollonius, hey, bro, they got money over there. Apollonius brings Simon to the king and was like, look, bro, he said they got money over there. So the king chose his treasurer, Heliodorus, and said, hey, man, go get that. What's up? They holding on to money? Because let's not forget, we paying taxes, right? We in captivity. We have to pay taxes to these nations. But remember, we're living at peace to the point they bring in gifts and even paying for our sacrifices. Right? But now all of a sudden, they holding back money? Hey, Helidorus, go check it out. Read.
So at forth Helidorus took his journey under a color of visiting the cities of Cilicia and Phoenice, but indeed to fulfill the king's purpose. And when he was come to Jerusalem and had been courteously received of the high priest of the city, he told him what intelligence was given of the money, and declared wherefore he came, and asked if these things were so indeed.
So now he said, look, I got some info. You see how it said he told him of the intelligence he received. The government. He was none other than an alphabet boy. But he said, look, I got some information. What's up, bruh? You got some money over here that you holding out? You ain't paying taxes on? Read.
Then the high priest told him.
So Onias told him what?
That there was such money laid up for the relief of the widows and fatherless children.
So what did he say? He said, yeah, we got holdings, but that's for the relief of the widows and the fatherless children. What were they doing? Why was that money being held up? They was keeping the law of God. He was doing what God had always told the Israelites to do. Read.
And that some of it belonged to Hyrcanus, son of Tobias, a man of great dignity, and not at that wicked Simon had misinformed. The sum whereof in all was 400 talents of silver and 200 of gold, and that it was altogether impossible that such wrongs should be done unto them that had committed it to the holiness of the place, and to the majesty and
Inviolable
sanctity
of the temple.
Honored over all the world.
So now Onias is explaining to him, like, look, bro, basically this is holiness. Like, we put these alms here for the fatherless and the widows, and it'd be wrong to take that. Because now what are you doing? Now you're going against the laws. Now we're putting the widows and the fatherless in danger. Watch what the Bible say. Go to Deuteronomy 14 first. Go to Deuteronomy 14. We're going to come back here. We will come back to 2 Maccabees, but go to Deuteronomy 14. Deuteronomy 14. Now remember in Deuteronomy 14, right? Get it real quick. I want us to read verse, hold on, let me get it. No, first I want verse 2.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 14 and verse 2.
Read it out.
For thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God, and the Lord has chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself, above all the nations that are upon the earth.
Read.
And thou shalt not eat any abominable thing.
So now we're going over these peculiar commandments. Remember that peculiar command. Matter of fact, let me get it since I said it. Wisdom of Solomon 19, real fast, read verse 6. Wisdom of Solomon 19, verse 6. He said, we are peculiar people unto himself. What makes us peculiar? 19, verse 6, Wisdom of Solomon, read that.
The book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 19 and verse 6.
Mm-hmm.
The whole creature in his proper kind was fashioned again anew, serving the peculiar commandments that were given unto them, that thy children might be kept without hurt.
You see that? Serving the peculiar commandments. That's what makes us peculiar unto God, that we may live without hurt. That's why when Onias was the high priest, we were all keeping the laws, living in peace without hurt. All right? Going back to Deuteronomy 14, we read verse 2, peculiar people. It says, verse 3 says, thou shalt not eat any abominable thing. So now we going into what makes us abominable, right? You know, the different things that we eat. But now watch this. Jump up to verse 28.
Verse 28. At the end of 3 years, thou shalt bring forth all the tithes of thy increase the same year, and shall lay it up within thy gates.
So remember, in 14, you start going into the tithes. And tithes wasn't money in that moment. It was what? It was crops. And it told you what to do with those crops. It told you how to deal with it. If you had too much, you turn it into money. Then you bring to where God said to come to, right? Matter of fact, read verse 26 real fast.
Verse 26. And thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatsoever thy soul desireth. And thou shalt eat there before the Lord thy God, and thou shalt rejoice thou and thine household.
So you get your tithes back, you get your crop back, your oxen, your sheep, your wine, whatever you desire with the money that you got from your original crops, and you took your journey. Then you eat there before the Lord where he said to come. Read verse 27.
And the Levite that is within thy gates, thou shalt not forsake him, for he has no part nor inheritance.
So don't forsake the Levite, because he has no part or inheritance within thee. And now it says, at the end of 3 years, thou shalt bring forth all the tithe of thine increase the same year that thou lay it up within thy gates. Read.
And the Levite, because he has no part nor inheritance with thee, and the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow.
The stranger, and the fatherless,
and the widow.
And the widow,
which are within thy gates, shall come, and shall eat and be satisfied, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all the works of thine hand, which thou doest.
You see that? So the Lord may bless you in everything that you do. Make sure you lay up for, first of all, the Levites, the strangers, the fatherless, and for the widow. Make sure you lay up for the fatherless and the widow. Deuteronomy chapter 10. Actually, 24. First I want 24. Deuteronomy 24. Read 17. I'm going to read this real quick. Deuteronomy chapter 24 and verse 17. Thou shalt not pervert the judgment of the stranger, nor of the fatherless, nor take a widow's raiment to pledge. But thou shalt remember that thou was a bondman in Egypt, and the Lord thy God redeemed thee thence. Therefore I command thee to do this thing. When thou cuttest down thine harvest in the field, and hast forgot a sheaf in the field, thou shalt not go again to fetch it. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and for the widow, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all thy work in thy hands. When thou beatest thine olive tree, and shalt not go over the boughs again, it shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. When thou gatherest the grapes of the vineyard, thou shalt not glean it afterward. It shall be for the stranger, fatherless, and the widow. And thou shalt remember that thou was a bondman in the land of Egypt. Therefore I command thee to do this thing. You always leave extra or lay up for the fatherless and the widow. Also the stranger, but I'm making the point of the fatherless and the widow because that's what Onias was doing. That's what Onias was doing. Last one, Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 17 and 18. Read that.
The book of Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verse 17. For the Lord your God is God of gods, the Lord of lords, a great God, a mighty and a terrible, which regardeth not persons nor take reward. He doeth execute the judgment of the fatherless and widow, and loveth the stranger, and giving him food and raiment.
You see that? He execute the judgment of the widow, the fatherless, and the stranger, and love them and give them food and raiment. Onias was keeping the laws of God. That's why it'd be a terrible thing, he said, to take that away. Back to 2 Maccabees chapter 3. And where were we at? Down in like 13, 12? Let me look. 2 Maccabees 3 and verse 12. Read that again.
The book of 2 Maccabees chapter 3 and verse 12. And that it was altogether impossible that such wrongs should be done unto them that has committed it to the holiness of the place, and to the majesty and inviolable sanctity of the temple, honored over all the world.
You see that? That it says it's impossible to do such wrong things. We can't do that. We're not going to do that. Hold up, but read on.
But Helidorus, because of the king's commandment given him, said that in any wise it must be brought into the king's treasury.
He was like, yeah, whatever, nigga. He said, in any wise, it got to be brought to the temple or to the king. He said, look, I got to do a job, bruh. He sent me to come get this money. I got to do my job. Yeah, I hear you and all that, and yeah, okay, but I got to do my job. So Helidorus didn't care. He was like, yeah, whatever. I'm here to do one job and one job. Oh, you hear that feedback? He said, I'm here to do one job and one job only. And I'm about to get this money. You get? That's it. That's all I'm here for. I don't care what you got going on, Onias, whatever you got. It don't matter. I'm here to do a job, and I'm going to do that job. Right? So watch this. Jump up now to verse 22. Let's see what happened since Helidorus said he going to do his job. Read.
Verse 22. They then called upon the Almighty Lord to keep the things committed of trust safe, and sure for those that had committed them. Nevertheless, Helidorus executed that which was decreed.
Hey, does that change the sound? Okay. Read.
Now, as he was presented himself with his guard.
As he was there present himself with his guard about the treasury, the Lord of spirits and the prince of all power caused a great apparition, so that all that presumed to come in with him were astonished at the power of God, and fainted and were so afraid. Uh-oh, God didn't cause the apparition. Cats done fainted. Cats done got shook. They scared to death, literally. They scared to death around here. God has showed up. Read. Because that's why Onai said, bro, it's impossible. It's impossible to take this. You're not going to do it. Helidor said, yeah, I am. God said, no, you ain't. Read.
Verse 25. For there appeared unto them an horse with a terrible rider upon him, and adored with a fair covering. And he ran fiercely, and smote at Helidorus with his forefeet. And it seemed that he had sat upon the horse and completed, or
had complete harness of gold.
Had complete harness of gold.
So it said what appeared was somebody on a horse. This person that's on a horse had a complete harness of gold. He ran up to Helidorus. You know how you lift up the horse? And excuse me. And the horse smote Helidorus with his forefeet. So he ran up on him, bow, kicked the crap out of him. Read.
Verse 26. Moreover, two other young men appeared before him, not notable in strength, excellent in beauty, and comely in apparel.
So two other men appeared. So we got angels on deck. We got angels on deck. Read.
Who stood by him on either side, and scourged him continually, and gave him many sore stripes.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Hey, Helidorus got jumped by the angels. Helidorus got jumped by the angels. One appeared he had gold armor on, reared up his horse, kicked him. Then while he had his doors down, two more angels appeared and just started smacking him. Just, Read.
And Helidorus fell suddenly unto the ground, and was compassed with great darkness. But they that were with him took him up, and put him into a litter. Thus him that lately came with a great train, and with all his guards, into the said treasury, they carried out, being unable to help himself with his weapons. And manifestly they acknowledged the power of God.
They acknowledge the power of God. They say, listen, man, I know that this God is real. Jump now for time's sake over to verse 37. Read that.
Verse 37. And when the king asked Helidorus, who might be a fit man to be sent yet once again.
So what happened? Matter of fact, read verse 35.
Verse 35. So Helidorus, after he had...
Oh, here, I got to give you the background real quick, just this part, because we're not reading it. So what happened was, the men that was with Helidorus asked Onias to pray for Helidorus, like, please, man, don't let him die, man. Send some prayers or do some offerings or something to God. Onias was smart. He was very wise. He said, you know what? I will do that, because if this dude die or whatever, they're for surely, the king who sent them is surely going to say that them Jews did this to my treasurer, so he go come after us. So he sent offerings unto God. Matter of fact, I want that part. Let me see. I'm going to read it. Let's actually go to verse 33. I'm going to read this real quick. Verse 33, it says, now as the high priest was making an atonement, the same young men in the same clothing appeared and stood beside Helidorus, saying, give Onias the high priest great thanks, and so much as for his sake the Lord has granted thee life. So the angels came next to him and said, look, bruh, you lucky Onias made an atonement for you. Your ass will be dead. You hear me? You'll be dead, son. You'll be dead, son. The angels was like, yeah, so thank him. You're lucky. You're lucky. Right? So boom, Onias sends up an atonement for Helidorus. He was saved. His life was saved. Helidorus goes back and reports to the king. He's like, look, bruh, look, I'm going to tell you straight. These dudes got a God that fight for them, okay? I seen it with my own two eyes. They appeared, whooped my ass. Listen, so now this is what the king asked Helidorus, verse 37.
Verse 37. And when the king asked Helidorus, who might be a fit man to be sent yet once again to Jerusalem, he said, if thou hast an enemy or a traitor, send him thither. and thou shalt receive him well, scourged. If he escape with his life, for in that place no doubt there is a special power of God.
Hey, he said, look, bruh, if you want to send somebody, send your enemy. Send a traitor. He said, because he will get scourged. He's going to get smoked. He said, trust me. He said, bro, there's a special power of God over there. I'm telling you straight. All right? He said, and that's if he escaped with his life. Read.
For he that dwelleth in heaven has his eye on that place, and defendeth it, and he beateth and destroyeth them that come to hurt it.
You see that? When we keep the laws, God stands up for us. So at least to say, he didn't get that money that was set aside for the widows and for the fatherless. You see that? He didn't get that. Now watch this. Go now to 2 Maccabees chapter 4. So now we see God shows up. Simon's plan to try to get our money took from us, basically to overthrow Onias, didn't work. Simon the Benjamite, traitor of Israel. But everything was good, but we always got to have some wickedness within Israel. 2 Maccabees 4. 2 Maccabees 4. We always read this, right? We always read about this. I'll say it that way. Verse 7. Go to verse 7.
The book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 4 and verse 7.
Get chapter 5 ready for me in Antiquities of the Jews. Read that.
2 Maccabees, chapter 4 and verse 7. But after the death of Seleucus,
so after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus, read.
When Antiochus called Epiphanes, took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be high priest.
So Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to become high priest. Read.
Promising unto the king by intercession 360 talents of silver, and of another revenue 80 talents.
Read.
Besides this, he promised to assign 150 more, if he might have license to set him up a place of exercise, and for the training up of youth in the fashions of the heathen, and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of
Antiochians,
which when the king had granted, he had gotten into his hand the rule. He forthwith brought his own nation to the Greekish fashion.
So this dude, Jason, brought his own nation to the Greekish fashions. Remember, the brethren said, we went through these sore troubles when Jason and his company went against. So now we're seeing Jason was the brother of Onias, a wicked brother. You see that? Now drop down to read verse 12. I need verse 12. Read that.
Verse 12. For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men under his subjection, and made them wear a hat.
So he brought the chief young men. He said, we're going to get these men. We're going to build a place of exercise. We're going to call these men Antiochians. Or how about Olympians? You see that? He said, we go train them up. We know there's training day. After training day, you also have what? You got to have the drafts, right? Recruitment. When today in sports, in all the sports, it don't matter what the damn sport is, when they get drafted to the professional team, they come up on stage, shake the coach's hand. What happens? Read the bottom of 12 again.
And
the chief young men.
And brought the chief young men under subjection, and made them wear a hat.
And they put a hat on them. Still today, they be having suits on, jerseys on, whatever. But they always get up, shake that coach's hand, and they put a hat on them. It's still happening the same today. You got the tryouts, you got the drafts, and then while they get drafted to the professional team, they get a hat slapped on them with the team name on it. Jump down to verse 18.
Verse 18. Now when the game that was used every 5th year was kept at Tyrus, and the king being present.
So the game that happened every 5th year, today it happens every 4 years. The games that happen every 4 years. Olympia, same difference. Back then, what they call it. Read on.
This ungracious Jason sent special messengers from Jerusalem, who were Antiochians, to carry 300 drachms of silver to the sacrifice of Hercules.
Sacrifice of Hercules. So instead of it being called the Olympics, it was they called it straight up. It was the sacrifice of Hercules. Read.
Which even the bearers thereof thought fit not to bestow upon the sacrifice, because it was not convenient, but to be reserved for other charges.
But if you notice, even in the Olympics today, they used to actually, I know it was what? I forget what year, 2012, something like that. But you can find it online. You could type in Hercules at the Olympics, the Olympic opening, right? They showed Hercules. It was like a big robotic Hercules. I remember big robotic Hercules coming down, right? At the beginning of the opening of the Olympics. They're showing what? It's the same damn thing. It's the game called for. Matter of fact, what's the main picture of the Olympics? You know that naked dude, the naked dude, what does he have? Pull a picture of that. The Olympic, I forget what it's called, basic statue, or, the dude, he's holding what? There he is. Pull that up. And read verse 14. Pull that up. Let's look at that while we're reading verse 14.
Verse 14. That the priests had no courage to serve any more at the altar.
Pull it up. Yep. Read.
That the priests had no more courage to serve any more at the altar, but despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifices, hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise, after the game of discus called them forth.
After the game of discus, the unlawful allowance. Why? Because they butt ass naked. You can pull that off. Ain't nothing changed. Go back now to verse 20.
Verse 20.
Or actually, let's just get to the point here in this one, and I want you to read verse 23.
Verse 23. 3 years afterwards, Jason sent...
22, I'm sorry.
Verse 22. And when he was honorably received of Jason and of the city, and was brought in with torchlight...
I got to read verse 21 here. I'll read this real quick. It says, Now when Apollonius, the son of Menecetheus, was sent into Egypt for the coronation of King Ptolemaeus, Philometor, Antiochus, understanding him not to be well affected to his affairs, provided for his own safety, whereupon he came into Joppe, and from thence to Jerusalem, where he was honorably received of Jason and of the city, and was brought in with what? Torchlight. It never fails. Every Olympic game starts out with what? Them lighting the torch. The Olympians or the Antiochians running the torch to light the biggest torch. That still happens. The last Olympics did it in the opening after they did their great big sacrificing to Hercules. They always put on a big show for the opening. That's all sacrifice to Hercules. That's all that is. Ain't nothing changed. But this is what Jason brought us to. That ungodly wretch and no high priest. Right? Read down now. Read verse 25.
Verse 25. So he came with the king's mandate, bringing nothing worthy.
Oh, sorry. We got to go to 23 because here's the next part. 23. Read that.
Verse 23. 3 years afterwards, Jason sent Menelaus, the aforesaid Simon's brother.
The aforesaid Simon's brother. So Simon the Benjamite's brother. The aforesaid Simon. So Simon the Benjamite, who had a fallout with Onias, Jason gets him, the brother of Simon, Menelaus. Read.
To bear the money unto the king, and to put him in mind of certain necessary matters.
Read.
But he, being brought to the presence of the king, when he had magnified him of the glorious appearance of his power, got the priesthood to himself.
So Menelaus now undercut Jason, and he got the priesthood to himself. Read.
Offering more than Jason by 300 talents of silver.
So he said, man, I got more. Now, mind you, Menelaus ain't got nothing. Menelaus got the money that Jason gave him. But he told the king, man, I'll give you 300 more. King didn't care. He was like, cool, okay. He said, just give me the priesthood. Yeah, you got it now. Cool. You the man. Where that money at? Read.
So he came with the king's mandate, bringing nothing worthy the high priesthood, but having the fury of a cruel tyrant and the rage of a savage beast.
Read.
Then Jason, who had undermined his own brother, being undermined by another, was compelled to flee into the country of the Ammonites.
So now Jason got to get up out of there, because Menelaus come back like, boy, I'm the man now. Get up. Get out the seat. I'm the priest now. I'm the high priest. I got the charge. So Jason was like, dang, I got to get out of here. So the same dude that undermined one brother, he undermined his own brother, got undermined by Simon's brother Menelaus. Read.
So Menelaus got the principality, but as for the money that he had promised unto the king, he took no good order for it. Albeit, so Trotius, the ruler of the council, required it.
Or it's Trotus, but go ahead. Sostratus, that's his name. Read. The ruler.
The ruler of the castle required it.
But now Sostratus, the ruler of the castle, he said, you said you got money. Where's the money? Menelaus didn't have no money. He only had the money that Jason gave him. He didn't promise the money so he could get the high priesthood. Now he need to come up with this money. He has no money. It's all about the money. Everything that goes down is because of some money. Onias was able to overcome because he offered money to the king. So the king said, okay, you could be the high priest. No more Onias. Now Menelaus offers more money. He said, you could be the high priest. No more Jason. Treacherous traitors in Israel. Drop down. From there, go to, actually, I want to get one other part. Read verse 32 now. No, 31. Let's start at 31.
Verse 31.
Oh, actually, before we go here, because we're going to move on, now give me back to Antiquities of the Jews, book 12, chapter 5. Bring up book 12, chapter 5. Antiquities of the Jews, book 12, chapter 5. Read that.
Antiquity of the Jews, book 12, chapter 5. About this time, upon the death of Onias the high priest, they gave the high priesthood to Jesus, his brother. For that son which Onias left was yet but an infant, and in its proper place.
So now Josephus is confused. So when we read this, we're going to see that so Josephus is confused, but we're going to clear it up. Read.
And in its proper place, we will inform the reader of all the circumstances that befell this child. But this Jesus, who was the brother of Onias, was deprived of
this Jesus, who was the brother of Onias, was deprived the high priesthood by the king. Read.
Was deprived the high priesthood by the king, who was angry with him and gave it to his younger brother, whose name was Onias. For Simon had these 3 sons, each of whom the priesthood came, as we have already informed the reader.
Read on. Wait, let him pull up the next part. It's the next screenshot. Yep, blow that up. This
Jesus changed his name to Jason.
Jason the wretch. Read.
But Onias was called Menelaus.
So he's confused. It's a different Menelaus. But now, according to Josephus' account, read on.
Now, as the former high priest, Jesus raised a sedition against Menelaus, who was ordained after him. The multitudes were divided between them both, and the sons of Tobias took the part of Menelaus. But the greater part of the people assisted Jason, and by the means of Menelaus and the sons of Tobias were distressed, and retired to Antiochus and informed him that they were desirous to lead the laws of their country and the Jewish ways of living according to them, and to follow the king's laws and the Grecian ways of living. Wherefore they desire his permission to build them a gymnasium at Jerusalem. And when he had given them leave, they also had circumcision of their genitals, that even when they were naked, they might appear to be Greeks.
Wow, these brothers wanted to be Greek. What it say? It said they didn't honor their fathers like in the glory of the Grecians, best of all. Read.
Accordingly, they left off all the customs that belonged to their own country and imitated the practices of the other nations.
You see that? So now get off of that. So this is what had happened. This is what was going on. This is what we just read about, right? So now jump back to verse, where was we at? I said 31, right?
Yes, sir. Second Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 31. Then came the king in all haste to appease matters, living in Andronicus, a man in authority for his
leaving Andronicus, a man in authority for his deputy. Read.
For his deputy. Now Menelaus, supposing that he had gotten a convenient time, stole certain vessels of gold out of the temple and gave some to them.
So and gave some of them to Andronicus, and some he sold to Tyrus and the cities round about. So this dude Menelaus was just going around bribing everybody. He stole goods out the temple to bribe Andronicus, right? Because he was coming after him. Then he sells some of it to Tyrus. Read verse 33.
Verse 33, when Onias knew of a surety, he reproved him and withdrew himself into a sanctuary at Daphne, that lieth by
Antiochia.
Antiochia. Wherefore Menelaus, taking Andronicus apart, prayed him to get Onias into his hands, who being persuaded thereunto, and coming to Onias in deceit, gave him his right hand with oaths. And though he were suspected by him, yet persuaded he him to come forth from the sanctuary, whom forthwith he shut up without regard of justice. For that which caused not only the Jews, but many also of other nations, took great indignation and were much grieved for the unjust murder of the man.
So Menelaus had Andronicus go kill Onias. Andronicus was the hitman, went and killed Onias, man. Killed Onias. Onias is dead now. Verse 30, I'm going to read this real quick. Verse 38. And being kindled with anger forthwith, he took away Andronicus' purple, because what happened is the king heard about it. And the king was even pissed. Was like, what? Why would you kill Onias? So, and being kindled with anger within, he took away Andronicus' purple and rent off his clothes, and leading him through the whole city unto the very place where he committed impiety against Onias, where there slew he the cursed murderer. Thus the Lord rewarded his punishment, and he had deserved. So now we got Menelaus, we got Simon, we got Jason, all these different traitors. What happened with all of this? What happened was, now the temple's getting more defiled and more defiled and more defiled. So now watch what happens. 2 Maccabees chapter 5, verse 5. Read that.
The book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 5 and verse 5. Now when there was gone forth a false rumor, as though Antiochus had been dead, Jason took at the least 1,000 men, and suddenly made an assault upon the city. And they that were upon the walls being put back, and the city at length taken, Menelaus fled into the council. But Jason slew his own citizens without mercy.
So Jason comes back. This guy slews his own citizens without mercy. Read.
Not considering that to get the day of them was of his own nation, would be a most unhappy day for him, but thinking they had been his enemies and not his countrymen, whom he conquered.
So this guy slowing his own countrymen, not even thinking, if you're trying to become the high priest again, these are the people that you will have to be dealing with. They're not going to entrust you with nothing. You killed them to try to become high priest again. Stupid. What are you doing? That's how much these dudes was coveting this power, right? Go to 2 Maccabees now, chapter 5, verse 15. I'll read that. Yet was he not content with this, but presumed to go into the most holy temple of all the world, Menelaus, the traitor to the laws and to his own country, being his guide. Meaning what? Epiphany said, I'm finna come and I'm gonna destroy Jerusalem. Who guided him? Menelaus. Verse 16, and taking the holy vessels with polluted hands and with profane hands, pulling down the things that were dedicated by other kings to the argumentation and glory and honor of the place, he gave them away. Boom. And so haughty was Antiochus in mind, that he considered not that the Lord was angry for a while for the sins of them that dwelt in the city, and therefore his eyes was not upon the place. So Antiochus thinks it was all him. He's the reason why he was able to come and conquer Jerusalem. No, it was because God was mad at us because we started sinning in this place. Why? Because you had Jason, the wretch, and his company, other wicked men. You had Menelaus, the traitor against the laws of God, right? You still have Simon in the background. So you got all these men in Israel now that is turning Israel into folly. Now we have folly in Israel, so therefore what? God turns his back on us. Therefore, he's allowing now Antiochus to come in. Being led by Menelaus. Menelaus was his guide. So now the sanctuary is polluted. Now what? 2 Maccabees chapter 6 now. Or actually, no, I have to read verse 24 through 27, the end of 2 Maccabees 5. Read that.
2 Maccabees chapter 5 and verse 24. He sent also that this detestable ringleader Apollonius with an army of 22,000, commanding him to slay all those that were in their best age, and to sell the women and the younger sword, who coming to Jerusalem and pretending peace, did forbear till the holy day of the Sabbath, when taking the Jews keeping holy day, and commanded his men to arm themselves. And so he slew all them that were gone to the celebrating of the Sabbath, and running through the city with weapons slew great multitudes. But Judas Maccabeus with 9 others, or thereabout, withdrew himself into the wilderness, and lived in the mountains after the manner of beasts, with his company, who fed on herbs continually, lest they should be partakers of the pollution.
So boom, Antiochus now comes through. That's when he set up the false altar, right? He set up the desolation, right? But it said Maccabees and 9 others or some sort, that the company that was with him, they fled into the wilderness. They ate just herbs, so they wouldn't be a part of the pollution. That's when they fled. That's what we read about all the time, right? That's what happened. That's how we got to this point of now the temple's destroyed, right? We got the abomination of desolation set up. They sacrificing swine. What else happened? Chapter 6, verse 4. I'm going to read this real quick. 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 4. For the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots and had to do with the women within the circuit of the holy places. And besides that, brought in things that were not lawful. The altar also was filled with profane things, which the law forbiddeth. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself to be at all a Jew. And in the day of the king's birth, every month they were brought to bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go into procession to Bacchus, carrying ivy. Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen by the suggestion of Ptolemy against the Jews, that they should observe the same fashions and be the partakers of their sacrifices. And whoso would not conform themselves to the manner of the Gentiles should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery. You see that? So we had to keep these customs or we died. We had to keep the customs or we died. When you read further in chapter 6, you read about the old man Eleazar. They wanted to bring him into constraint and have us think that he took the defiled food, so we would all do it. Eleazar said, nah, he ended up dying. Chapter 7, you still had more perils. You had the wife and her 7 sons. They all died to keep the laws and not be polluted, right? Chapter 8, verse 1. Chapter 8, verse 1, it says, about that time came Antiochus with this honor out of the country of Persia. Or excuse me, I'm reading chapter 9. Chapter 8, verse 1. It says, then Judas Maccabeus and they that were with him went privily into the towns and called their kinsfolk together and took them all that such continued to the Jews' religion and assembled about 6,000 men. They had 6,000 men. And they called upon the Lord, and that would look upon the people in the trodden down of all, and also the pity of the temple profane of ungodly men, and that would have compassion upon the city, sore defaced and ready to be made even with the ground, and hear the blood that cry unto him. And remember that wicked slaughter of the harmless infants and the blasphemies committed against his name, and that he would show his hatred against the wicked. Now, when Maccabeus and his company about him, he could not be withstood by the heathen, for the wrath of the Lord was turned into mercy. What happened? Maccabeus, the Maccabean revolt, they stood up. That's how we got to the point now of what? Taking our altar back. Real quick, because the time is short, I just want to get to the point, and now let's just look at who these men were in completeness, so we know who they were. Now, one way to look up the men when you're reading this type of history and you see these different names, Seleucus and then the other Seleucus and Demetrius and the Demetrius' son and Onias and his son and all, and you're like, damn, who's who? What's going on? And you're trying to line it up through history and you're trying to get the years, things of that nature. You can go to Wikipedia, right? You can go to Wikipedia, you can pull up the name, and you can go throughout the successors and the predecessors. Successors, predecessors. Successors was the men that took control after. Predecessors was the men that was in control before. A lot of times it was the sons, the kids, right? Or you can get the book Who's Who. Pull up Who's Who. You can get the book Who's Who. Pull up Who's Who. So this is the book Who's Who, right? Put me on the screen real quick. So it's just an open cover. Is this. This is Who's Who. Okay. Go to the next page for Who's Who. So Who's Who in the Bible, 2 volumes in one. Who's Who in the Old Testament together with the Apocrypha. Who's Who in the New Testament. All right. That's the Who's Who that you want. Now we're going to the section of the Apocrypha. Let's pull up Onias. So now we can see who they are. And I'll read the books real quick. And get for me ready 2 Maccabees 2. And we're going to read 4, verse 4. But let's read this in Onias. So it says, Onias, 4th century BC, high priest in Jerusalem, and ancestor of Simon the Just. Remember, it said Simon had these 3 sons. So this Onias is ancestor of Simon the Just, a later high priest. He received a letter of friendship from Arius, king of Sparta. You can read that in 1 Maccabees 12 as well. We didn't read it, but you can read that. Now, the Onias that we've been reading about, the one that got traded on by Jason, is number 2 Onias. Notice it says Onias the third, 2nd century BC. Remember, Onias the first was 4th century BC, older. 2nd century BC, younger. Son of the high priest Simon the second. He was himself high priest in Jerusalem during the reign. Oh, yeah, and I said that wrong. So this is the son of the high priest the second, because he had Jason also. Simon the second had also Jason, right? It says, I'll read it again, 2nd century BC, son of the high priest Simon II. He was himself high priest in Jerusalem during the reign of the Seleucid ruler Seleucus the fourth Philopator. So that was the said Seleucus who also offered his own money for the sacrificing that we were doing. So it was Seleucus the fourth. So when you go to 2nd Maccabees 1, and we were reading about it, that's Seleucus the fourth Philopator. The Onias that we're reading about is Onias the third. All right? 2nd century BC. All this that we read about this history took place in 2nd century BC. Let's go back to the book. He was venerated of his learning and piety. After his murder, he appeared in a vision related by Judas Maccabeus to inspire his men before battle. The king's chief minister, Heliodorus, was sent to Jerusalem to confiscate the gold and silver in the temple, but was foiled through divine intervention in response of Onias' prayers. When Antiochus IV Epiphanes came to the throne in 175 BC, Onias was ousted by his corrupt brother Jason and retired to the sanctuary of Daphne near Antioch. He was later murdered in the investigation of another high priest, or in the instigation of another high priest, Menelaus. That's what we read about. So that's the Onias that we're reading about. Onias the third. Onias the third, also Seleucus the fourth Philopator. Seleucus the fourth Philopator. That's who we're reading about. So now you can line it up. Remember, 2nd century BC. 2nd century BC. Go back to Menelaus now. Go to that one that says Menelaus. This is the Menelaus that we're reading about. Menelaus, it says 2nd century BC. High priest in Jerusalem, 172 to 62. In the reign of Antiochus IV, Menelaus succeeded by bribery in ousting the high priest Jason and getting to himself appointed instead. He arranged for the murder of the revered former high priest Onias III, who had denounced him. Menelaus helped Antiochus IV despoil the temple and carry off its treasures, right? Later, he was charged, and himself, he got out of it by bribery. He was bribing everywhere all the time, right? That's Menelaus, right? So these are the people that we're reading about. These are the ones. I didn't get you Jason, but I'm going to read Jason real quick. And I'm just going to read it real fast for time's sake. Or did I get you Jason? Okay, I did get Jason. Okay, pull up Jason. So you got Jason. Now, above this, it says number 1 Jason, right? 2nd century BC, son of Eleazar. That's the Maccabean, Jason the Maccabean, right? But notice 2nd century BC. But let's read the Jason the high priest that underhandedly took it from his brother. Jason number 2, 2nd century BC as well. High priest in Jerusalem, 175 to 2 BC. Because remember, he got it back. It said, Jason was the son of the high priest Simon II, and the younger brother of the high priest Onias III. On the accession to the throne of Antiochus IV in 175 BC, Jason had himself appointed in place of his brother by offering the new king a large sum of money. Jason collaborated in introducing Hellenistic customs and undermining strict adherence to the ancestral Jewish faith. He constructed a gymnasium in the temple area and sent a sacrifice to the shrine of Hercules in Tyre and Phoenicia. And Antiochus came to Jerusalem. He was lavishly entertained by Jason, although he was generally detested by the Jews for his repressive religious measures. 3 years after becoming high priest, Jason was in his turn ousted by the corrupt Menelaus, who had heavily bribed the provincial governor. Jason took refuge across the Jordan River among Ammonites. Remember, it said he ran to the Ammonites, from where he made an abortive attempt to regain his position in Jerusalem by force, taking refuge again over the Jordan. He was captured by the Arabian chief Aradus, but escaped and reached Egypt. From there, he went to Sparta, where he died. So again, remember, we read about him coming back, killing his own countrymen. So these are the men that we were just reading about. So again, because remember, Josephus was a little confused about Menelaus and Onias becoming Menelaus. That wasn't so. We read it in the Bible. Then you have the who's who that backs it up, okay? So there's two different ones. Even if Onias he went by Menelaus, it's not that Menelaus. So, no. So Josephus was off in that. But other than that, you see we had the book of Josephus giving us the account. This is all happening. Who's who gives you the date, the exact men, who they were, number 3, number 4, things of that nature. This all is happening in 2nd century BC. From there, we about to wrap it up. 2 Maccabees chapter 2, verse 4. Read that.
The book of 2 Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 4. It was also contained in the same writings that the prophet, being warned of God, commanded the tabernacle and the ark to go with him, as he went forth into the mountain, where Moses climbed up and saw the heritage of God.
So the same mountain that Moses climbed up, Sinai, read.
And when Jeremy came thither, he found a hollow cave wherein he laid the tabernacle and the ark and the altar of the incense, and stopped the door. And some of those that followed him came to mark the way, but they could not find it. When Jeremy perceived, he blamed them, saying, as for that place, it is to be unknown until the time God gather his people again together and receive them unto mercy.
Talking about us in this day. So that place, everybody talking about we found the ark and this and that and over there and and where they say Arabia and all that. No. It said that place is going to be unknown till God gather his people again together. Read.
Then shall the Lord show them these things, and the glory of the Lord shall appear, and the cloud also, as it was showed under Moses.
So just like when Moses and them were exiting and they got showed things, it said in the cloud, likewise it will happen to us again in this second Exodus. Read.
And as when Solomon desired that the place might be honorably sanctified.
Said just like when Solomon desired that the place be sanctified. Read.
It was declared that he being wise.
It was also declared
that he being wise offered the sacrifice of dedication and of the finishing of the temple.
And what did Solomon do? He offered the sacrifice of dedication for the finishing of the temple when he first built it. So Solomon did a dedication. Read.
And as when Moses prayed unto the Lord, the fire came down from heaven.
And so when Moses built the tabernacle, he did the same thing. Prayed unto the Lord, fire came down and consumed, read.
And consumed the sacrifices. Even so prayed Solomon also, and the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offerings.
Read.
And Moses said, because the sin offering was not to be eaten, it was consumed. So Solomon kept 8 days.
So Solomon kept those 8 days. Read.
The same things also reported in the writings and the commentaries of Nehemiah, and how he was founded and he
founded a library, gathered together the acts of the kings and the prophets of David and the epistles of the kings concerning the holy gifts. So also it was found in the writings of Nehemiah. The same thing happened. Read.
In like manner also Judas gathered together also those things that were lost by reason of the war we had, and they remained with us.
So it said also Judas gathered everything back together that was lost in the wars. As we regained the temple and dedicated the altar, we got it all back. Read.
Wherefore ye have need thereof, send some of the flesh to fetch them unto you.
Read.
Whereas we then are about to celebrate the purification we have written unto you, and ye shall do well if ye keep the same days.
Read.
We hope also that the God that delivered all his people and gave them all heritage and the kingdom and the priesthood and the sanctuary, as he promised in the law, will shortly have mercy upon us and gather us together out of every land under heaven into the holy place. For he has delivered us out of great trouble and has purified the place.
You see that? So also likewise, we pray that this happens all over again for y'all. This is what we are now gathering ourselves together for. To do it all over again. This time to do it once and for all. Once, everything gonna happen at once. The purification of the temple again, the dedication of the altar again, the Exodus again. You understand that? Watch this. Because they said something there. They said, just like Moses did it, Solomon did it, and it's written in the writings of Nehemiah, just now we're doing it, or Judas did it. That they're giving that testament. Likewise, it's for us to do it one more again. Go back real quick. I'm going to read this real fast, and we out of here, y'all. Numbers chapter 7, real fast. This is what the brethren was talking about. So the brethren understood and knew the history as well, right? So Numbers chapter 7, I'm going to read verse 1 and 2 real fast. And it came to pass on the day that Moses had fully set up the tabernacle and had anointed it and sanctified it and all the instruments thereof, both the altar and all the vessels thereof, and had anointed them and sanctified them, that the princes of Israel, heads of the house of their fathers, who were the princes of the tribes and were over them that were numbered, offered. It said that they offered, right? Verse 11. And the Lord said unto Moses, they shall offer their offering, each prince on this day, for the dedicating of the altar. Boom. Moses did a dedication of the altar. 1 Kings chapter 8, because it spoke about Solomon in his time. 1 Kings chapter 8, I'm going to read 1 through 5 real fast. 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 1. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel. And you notice every time the elders were also assembled. Moses did it with the princes of the tribes. Now Solomon's doing it with the elders. The elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes. The heads of the tribes. The chief of the fathers of the children of Israel unto King Solomon in Jerusalem, that they might bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of the city of David, which is in Zion. And all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto the king Solomon at the feast in the month Ethanium, which is the 7th month. And all the elders of Israel came, and the priests took up the ark, and they brought up the ark of the Lord, and the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle. Even those did the priests and the Levites bring up. And King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him were with him before the ark, sacrificing sheep and oxen that could not be told nor numbered for the multitude. So it said they did sacrifice, right? Now let's jump up to verse 60. Jump up to verse 62. I'm going to go to verse 62. Verse 62. And the king and all Israel with him offered sacrifice before the Lord. And Solomon offered a sacrifice of peace offerings, which he offered unto the Lord, 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the children of Israel dedicated the house of the Lord. So he did a dedication. You see that? Verse 65. And at that time Solomon held a feast, and all of Israel with him, a great congregation, from the entering of Hamath to the river of Egypt, before the Lord our God 7 days, and 7 days, even 14 days. And on the 8th day he sent the people away, and they blessed the king, and they went into their tents joyful and glad of heart, for all goodness that the Lord had done for David, his servant, and Israel, his people. Boom. He did a dedication. Notice, when they finished the temple at that time, it was the 7th month. 2 Chronicles 7. Let's get some more just to have it clear, in case we didn't have it totally clear, because it said 7 and 7, right? 7 and 7. 2 Chronicles 7, verse 1. Sorry, I'm rushing at the end for time's sake, y'all. All right, so real quick. 2 Chronicles 7, verse 1. Now, when Solomon had made an end of praying, the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices, and the glory of the Lord filled the house. And the priests could not enter into the house of the Lord, because the glory of the Lord had filled the Lord's house. And when all the children of Israel saw how the fire came down, the glory of the Lord upon the house, they bowed themselves into their faces to the ground and upon the pavement and worshiped and praised the Lord, saying, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. Now, jump up to verse 8. Also, at that same time, Solomon kept the feast 7 days, and all Israel with him, a very great congregation, from the Arnon of Hamath to the river of Egypt. And in the 8th day, they made a solemn assembly, for they kept the dedication of the altar 7 days, and the feast 7 days. Because remember, it was the 7th month. They had the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days. 8th day, they had a solemn assembly, and they also kept the Feast of Dedication for 7 days. You understand that? You see that there? So Solomon kept the dedication. Nehemiah chapter 12. Let's jump up. Remember, it was also in the commentary in the writings of Nehemiah. Right? What did Nehemiah do? Because remember, we read in Nehemiah chapter 8, it was the 7th month. Right? Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 1. Wait, let me see. I'm just getting to the point. Verse 2. And Ezra the priest brought the law before the congregation, both of the men and women, and all that could hear, understanding upon the first day of the 7th month. This was the 7th month. They got to the altar back and they started reading. And they had to read and they found out, damn, we're supposed to keep the tabernacles. This is memorial blowing of the trumpets. So they did that, right? So now let's jump up to chapter 12. Let's see what happened. Chapter 12. So Nehemiah chapter 12, verse 1, it says, now these are the priests and the Levites that went up with Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Jeshua, Sariah, Jeremiah, Ezra, Amariah. Actually, I just want to get to the point. Verse 26. So we're talking about the men that went up with Zerubbabel and Jeshua, right? So now let's jump to verse 26. 26 says, these were in the days of Joachim, the son of Jeshua, the son of Josadak, and in the days of Nehemiah, the governor, and of Ezra, the priest, the scribe. And at the dedication of the wall of Jerusalem, they sought the Levites out of all their places to bring them to Jerusalem to keep the dedication with gladness, both with thanksgiving and with singing and cymbals and psalteries and with harps. Same thing the Maccabees did. You understand? Nehemiah did it. Solomon did it. Moses did it. The Maccabees did it. Guess what? We will do it next. Christ himself dedicated himself by sacrifice. What are we to do? Romans 12. Romans 12. I wanted to get more on this, but I knew the time is short, so maybe we'll do a little more at another time, Lord willing. But let's read this. Romans 12, verse 1. I beseech you, therefore. Actually, read that. Go ahead. Romans 12, verse 1.
The book of Romans, chapter 12, and verse 1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service.
So now we must present our bodies like Christ presented his as a living sacrifice, which is what? Our reasonable service. It's for us now to do it all over again, make the exodus, dedicate to the altar, getting and gaining our temple and altar back once again. But that was the history that led up to the dedication, how we had treacherous men amongst Israel. You know, you had Menelaus, Simon, you had Jason, you had other men that was with them that we ended up our altar profaned after we was living in such great peace. And we had the other kings like Seleucus IV, Philopator, even giving money that we sacrificed to the point to where it got ran over by Epiphanes IV, or Antiochus IV Epiphanes. So all praise to the Most High in Christ bless. Pray we learned something today. As always, you know we always got the missions. If you have not already, go join the Booster Club, IUIC.fundraising at Israel, at IsraelUnite.org. All right. Also, you know, we have classes, radio shows all day long. I can't even say 3 times a day no more. All day long. Another class going to pop on right now. All day long, 7 days a week. Of course, the Sabbath, we got the lineup, the Sabbath lineup. We got the Friday lineup. We got radio shows all throughout the night, all throughout the day. So always be in tune. All praises to the Most High, death to our enemies, and let's continue to press on. Israel, Most High in Christ bless you all. Of course, stay prayed up, stay faithful, all right, and stay in the spirit. Most High in Christ bless.
Across the earth, the prophets move. From city streets to distant lands, the message is the same. Israel must rise. Through every quest, every journey, the truth spreads. No border can contain it. No distance can silence it. Our nation lives in every moment. In joy, we celebrate marriages. In sorrow, we honor our dead. On the Sabbath, we gather as one. Families rejoicing together, bound by the commandments of God. Yet are we tried. From the stones in Kenya to the hatred in Montana, we endure as a soldier of the Lord. And still, the mission expands. On the airwaves, on the screens, in every nation under heaven, Israel's voice is heard. We build our communities. We raise our children in royalty. We restore what was broken. We clean what was defiled. We show the world who we are. This is Israel united in Christ. Nation in motion. Nation endures.